Hello everybody, E here. Welcome back to Thursday Theorist. Today we are talking about nightmares and dreamscapes. This is Stephen King's third collection, I believe. I'm just going off the top of the head here. This is probably right in the middle. It's in the middle of his collections. This is probably right in the middle of my favorite and worst collections from him. I would say it's just above Everything's Eventual for short story collection. Well, it's right in between. I guess I like Bizarre Bad Dreams a little bit more than this one, but they're pretty much on the same level for me. Of course, I don't like Everything's Eventual at all. So I would say it would go Bizarre Bad Dreams, Nightmares and Dreamscapes, and then Everything's Eventual. But when I say that, I mean those first four are good to great to amazing, whereas Everything's Eventual, I didn't like much about it at all. With these short story collections, I don't like going through every single short story, but if you have a favorite story, and you have a Dark Tower connection that I do not talk about in this video, please leave it down there in the doobly-doo. The best one I like, I'll pin you. So right off the bat, we're going to talk about the Night Flyer, because that one is a super hard connect for the Dark Tower, and that, I think, other than the Castle Rock story, I think that's where I'm going to focus most of my time on, because we also go into Poppy, which is probably I think it's the best story in the collection, but we'll get to that in a second. With the Night Flyer, you follow Richard Dees, who is a reporter for Inside View. Inside View is all over the Stephen King universe. He mentions it in almost every single book after Nightmares and Dreamscapes. And of course, sometimes, even in Elevation recently, he mentioned Inside View and the Night Flyer. Sometimes he only mentions Richard Dees. But Richard Dees has a pilot's license, and he is tracking down an entity that also flies a plane. It's a very interesting story. One of the best takes on vampires I have ever read. The coolest part in the story, I know I just said entities, I just realized that, it doesn't matter if I spoil the story or not, it's been out so long. But the take here with the vampires is, I think my favorite part is is the vampire at the urinal, peeing blood. We think about vampires, we rarely think about the physiology of a vampire. And one of those things is, you eat a whole lot of asparagus, your pee smells like asparagus. You drink a whole lot of blood, what's your pee gonna look like? That kind of thing. But I thought that was super clever, even if kidneys are filters. We're not gonna go there, but I mean, he's undead, so the kidneys aren't working. Yeah, whatever. We could argue all day. So, in fact, let's do that. Y'all want to argue the physiology of vampires? Let's do that down there in the comments section. But then, on top of that, he mentions Jerusalem's Lot, or Salem's Lot, and that is a hard connect for the Dark Tower, because Father Callahan is in the Dark Tower books. So that's a hard connect. So that roots this collection in the Dark Tower universe. Now we bring ourselves to Poppy, which is a terrific take on a vampire story. In fact, it's one of my favorites because, well, first off, nothing bothers me more than a pedophile. I think that's where, even some murderers, I think they can redeem themselves, but I think a pedophile that actually acts out on their, I don't even want to think about it, but you get what I'm saying. If they actually act out on their desires, then, I don't think there's any redemptive quality whatsoever, because they have destroyed another human being. Not necessarily killed them, but destroyed. The idea that this vampire comes after this guy in his van, and it's one of the most epic scenes in all of King literature when that thing lands on the top of the van. It's another one of those scenes from a Stephen King book that is stuck in my mind, and Poppy, it's right up there. Now, the story itself, this is going to sound weird. I know it sounds weird. I don't like the story itself. I like the concept I like what happens in the story. I don't like the way it's written. I believe it's a chore to read, which is why it doesn't end up on my favorite Stephen King stories. My top 5 or top 10, even though it sticks in my head. Whereas the breathing method, and we talked about this on Top 5 Friday, is one of the best Stephen King novellas, and it has that scene. I talk about this quite often. You can enjoy parts of a story, and those parts can be your favorite. But the story or the actual complete delivery, the complete package, is not your favorite, if that makes sense. That's also why my opinion changes so much, where Stephen King is, because sometimes things will work for me, sometimes they won't, and sometimes they're a complete disaster. Sometimes I completely fall in love with something that I hated to begin with. Bag of Bones is one of those books. So next we have It Grows on You. I mean, come on, it's it always tickles me going back to like what was Needful Things, the last Castle Rock story, and then we get It Grows on You, then we get Wendy's Button Box, then we get Elevation, you know, we get all these other stories. We get the Castle Rock television show. It's kind of like, what is it, Friday the 13th. The fourth one is called The Final Friday, and then they go on to like have 6 to 7 more movies, and then they reboot it, and then he fights Freddy. You get what I'm saying. I find it funny. Let's see here. Is it the, Crouch End. Crouch End is the final one. This one I actually stole off of, I never even thought about this. I'm going to go ahead and give credit where credit's due. I stole this off the Stephen King message boards, the fan connections, because I don't know why it didn't click with me. So the user who submitted that one, good job if you ever watch this. They say that there's the officer in Crouch End. It's not one of my favorite stories. I'm sorry. It's got a nice, creepy vibe to it. It's a little too Lovecraftian for my taste, but it's just the story itself is no fun to read for me. I like the content, it's just no fun. And that's a lot of this collection, if I'm honest. Great ideas, not well executed. But I know some of you guys are going to disagree with me. Disagree with me down there in the doobly-doo. But we get to Crouch End, and the officer behind the desk, when the woman's reporting, or is it the dude? See, that's how much I remember the story. Whoever's reporting that the other person, the husband, wife, girlfriend, boyfriend, whatever, disappeared, or they got lost in Crouch End, the officer says there's a thin spot. Something like that. I'd have to reread it. But anyways, I stole it, like I said, I stole it off of the fan connections. I vaguely remember, I think I've read the story twice. I've read this whole collection twice. I said it's not one of my favorites. But he says that there is a thin spot, and sometimes people get lost or things get through. That's definitely a thinny. I mean, you can't argue that. Stephen King universe. And then, of course, ties in the Dark Tower as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything else in here. There's one that you guys might... Yeah. There's one about the nature of time. If you guys could tell me which one you think I'm talking about, I think I just gave it away. But tell me why you think that connects to the Dark Tower down there in the comments below. But until next time, I have been E, you have been you. This has been another Thursday Theorist Review. I'll talk to you guys later. Bye-bye!